Welcome to the deep dive. We grab the sources, cut through the noise, and pull out what matters so you can get instantly up to speed. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty unexpected, actually. John Grisham, the absolute master of the legal thriller. But this time, he's stepping way outside his usual courtroom drama.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, Grisham built this massive career on high-stakes legal battles, David versus Goliath, right? Usually involving big corporations or political intrigue. But his upcoming novel, The Widow, well, the sources are saying it's a complete genre shift. He's going for a pure, straight-up whodunit mystery.
That feels like a huge risk, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack what this story is really about. How does Grisham handle this new territory? Who's the protagonist? And yeah, we got a pretty great behind-the-scenes story about the ending. Apparently, it needed a massive rewrite.
And you really got to grasp how big a departure this is. I mean, 300 million books sold based on a certain kind of story. The Widow isn't that. It's not global conspiracy. It sounds much more claustrophobic, small town, lots of moral gray areas.
Okay, let's get into it. Who's our main character? Definitely not the usual idealistic Harvard grad.
No,
But again,
Meet Simon Latch. He's a lawyer, yeah, but small town, Braxton, Virginia. Been doing it 18 years, and he is just completely burned out.
burned out how? Like tough cases.
Not even. He's just drowning in the mundane stuff. Bankruptcies, DUIs, foreclosures, the nickel and dime legal problems of a small town. The sources really paint this picture of a guy whose, big dreams have totally fizzled out. Plus, he's got secret gambling debts piling up, and his marriage is falling apart, too. It's grim.
Right, that context is key. Makes him desperate. So desperate, he's taking on simple wills for next to nothing.
Exactly. Like drafting a basic will for maybe $250, and those sources say he tries to make it sound all profound, calling it executing the document. But really, he just needs the cash flow, any cash flow, and maybe to feel important again, even for a moment.
Okay, so he needs money, he needs a win. And then
she walks in, Eleanor Burnett. Everyone calls her Nettie. She's his potential lifeline.
and Nettie's got the hook, right? The big secret.
Oh, yeah. She's 85, a widow, and she claims she's sitting on a massive hidden fortune. We're talking millions, hidden away in Coca-Cola and Walmart stock. And crucially, her estranged stepsons have no idea this money exists.
Wow, okay. And she wants Latch's help.
Desperately. She believes her current will, which was handled by some rival lawyer, Wally Thackerman. She thinks it's a total scam designed to cheat her out of her money, so she wants Latch to write a new will, cut out the stepsons, and basically rescue her.
And Latch, he sees dollar signs, right? This is his escape hatch.
Absolutely. He sees Nettie, and suddenly all his problems seem solvable. The debt, the marriage, everything. He agrees to help her, to rescue her. But here's the turn. He's already thinking about how he can skim a little something for himself.
Ah, there it is. The moral compromise.
Exactly. And his first big mistake, he decides to draft this new will completely off the books, keeps the huge fortune a secret, doesn't even tell his own secretary, who's usually very loyal.
So he's already operating in the shadows.
That's the pivot. That secrecy, that decision to bend his own rules for a potential payday. That's what pushes this story out of just being about a struggling lawyer and into real mystery territory. It's a big shift for a Grisham hero, who's usually, fundamentally decent, even if flawed.
Okay, so he crosses the line, but then things get complicated fast.
Immediately. First off, Nettie herself turns out to be, well, not the sweet little old lady Latch imagined. She's described as prickly, cagey, really evasive about where this supposed fortune actually is.
So maybe not so straightforward. And then,
just as Latch is dreaming about his cut, Nettie has a car accident. Ends up in the hospital, and then she dies. Unexpectedly. Initially, it's listed as, natural causes. Convenient, maybe.
But it wouldn't be much of a mystery if it stayed that way.
Exactly. This is still Grisham, after all. So the car crash starts looking suspicious. Pretty soon, Nettie's death isn't natural causes anymore. It's a full-blown murder investigation.
And let me guess. All eyes turn to Simon Latch, the guy who just secretly rewrote her multi-million-dollar will.
You got it. All the circumstantial evidence points straight at him. And this right here, this is where you see the genre shift crystallize for Grisham as the writer. Latch isn't the lawyer fighting for a client anymore. He is the client. He's the defendant in a murder case.
Wow. So to save himself, he has to figure out who really did it.
Bingo. But he's got zero training for that. He argues about evidence in court. He doesn't, pound the pavement collecting it. He has no idea how to be a detective.
That's the core conflict then. This guy who deals with DUIs suddenly has to solve a murder. His own, potentially. It sounds tricky, like maybe Grisham's playing away from his strengths. His strength is the courtroom, the legal chess game.
That's a really fair point. It's definitely a risk. But the sources, the early reviews, they suggest it actually pays off. Apparently, the pivot works, but maybe not entirely how you'd expect. The stuff you do expect from Grisham, the legal bits, the courtroom scenes, they're reportedly pitch perfect, as you'd imagine, right? He knows that world inside out.
Okay, so the courtroom stuff is solid. But what about the mystery part? The detective work.
That's the surprise. The reviews suggest the novel is actually at its best when it's least like classic Grisham. It's Simon Latch's clumsy, desperate fumbling around trying to figure out the conspiracy outside the courtroom. That's apparently the most gripping part of the story.
Interesting. So it's more about the character's struggle than the legal intricacies this time.
It seems so. Suggests Grisham's real strength might be in crafting these intense personal dilemmas, not just legal procedure. The pacing is described as a bit of a slow burn at first, setting up Latch in the town. But once the murder investigation kicks in, it supposedly picks up speed and builds to an ending that few will predict.
Yeah.
It's definitely described as more character-driven, more claustrophobic than his usual blockbusters. That intimacy seems key.
Okay, speaking of that unpredictable ending, this brings us to that behind-the-scenes story. Because the ending we'll read wasn't the first one he wrote.
No, not at all. And this is such a great insight into the creative process, even for someone hugely successful. Grisham finished the book, had an ending he was really proud of. He called it really clever, thought he was done, wrapped up.
Let me guess, someone disagreed.
His wife, Renee Jones, she read the draft. And according to the sources, her feedback was, well, blunt. Something like, hey, buddy, this ain't working.
Ouch. How did Grisham take that?
Well, understandably, he was skeptical at first. I mean, he's John Grisham, right? He actually sent that original draft to his editors in New York anyway, kind of like, okay, you'll see, this ending is great, almost daring them.
And the editors.
They sided completely with his wife. They came back and basically said, yeah, Renee's right, this ending, it's not going to work. Not for the story he'd built.
Wow. So what happened?
This is the amazing part. He had to listen. He had to scrap his clever ending, and he ended up writing 25,000 more words to create a totally new conclusion. Think about that 25,000 words. That's like adding a whole novella onto the end of the book.
That's incredible. Why do you think the original ending failed? Too focused on a legal trick, maybe?
That's a good guess. Often when someone known for legal thrillers tackles a whodunit, the temptation is to solve it with a loophole or a courtroom maneuver. But a true mystery often needs more, right? An emotional resolution, something driven by the characters. The original probably felt too technical, maybe? Didn't satisfy the emotional core of the whodunit genre he'd stepped into.
Makes sense. And Grisham himself, is he happy with the rewrite?
Seems like it. He admitted later something like, I did not know the ending when I started, which is fascinating. But he says he's really pleased with how it turned out now. And honestly, that willingness to take criticism, especially from his wife and editors, and then put in that much work, it says a lot, especially after all his success.
Yeah, it really does. So despite Latch playing detective, it still feels like a Grisham book in some ways.
He says so. He calls it a pure mystery, but notes the key question shifts a bit. It becomes less about just whodunit and more about Latch himself. Did he do it? That ambiguity sounds central.
Interesting twist.
Yeah, and he reassures fans there's still a lot of good stuff in there. Colorful characters, and yes, eventually, a compelling courtroom drama. It's just that this courtroom drama is fueled by a murder investigation where the lawyer is the prime suspect, not fighting some corporate giant.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What's the key takeaway for you, the listener? You're getting a Grisham novel that's really different. Simon Latch, this burned-out, indebted lawyer. He's suddenly thrown into the deep end, forced to become a detective just to stay out of prison for murder. It's that stark shift, defender to defendant, wrapped in a mystery that even forced Grisham himself to rethink his ending.
You're essentially getting the best of both worlds, it sounds like. That detailed legal grounding Grisham is known for, but powering a genuine, twisty mystery plot. And remember the date if you're interested. The Widow comes out October 21st, 2025.
All right, and before we go, here's something to think about. John Grisham, arguably the king of his genre, took major criticism from his wife and editors and rewrote a huge chunk of his book. So does real mastery mean sticking to what you know works, your proven formula? Or is it actually about being willing to step into uncomfortable new territory, being vulnerable enough to listen, and letting trusted people help you hammer the work into shape, even when you think you've nailed it? Something to chew on until October 2025.